Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I did a video, and in that video, I talked about the hypocrisy of, Tariq Nasheed, Dr. Umar Johnson, and Boyce Watkins. I talked about how they had all this smoke for Kamala Harris, but they gave Donald Trump all kinds of passes. And in fact, some of them actually supported Donald Trump. They made statements favorable about Donald Trump while they're condemning and chastising a black woman. So when I did that video, I received quite a few comments. There were a lot of trolls on that video, and I had to block a lot of people and delete their comments. And so what I want to do is take time to respond to some of the things that people raised in response to my video. But I also, before we even get started, I want to talk about the rules of engagement for my channel. And shout out to my brother. He did a similar thing on his TikTok page. First of all, I don't mind if people disagree with me. If people have substantive arguments to make and actual points to make that are contrary to mine, I have no problem with that at all. I welcome debate. I embrace debate. In fact, I challenge you all to a live debate. And I will be going live, and I meant to go live this past weekend, but I wasn't able to. But I plan to go live soon, and I give you your chance to debate me live about these issues. But anyway, if you come to my page and you're disrespectful, if you insult me, if you attack me, if you make, ad hominem attacks against me, or you make disrespectful comments to people that are in the comment section, your comments will be deleted and you will be blocked from my channel. I don't have time to entertain trolls. I delete trolls. I don't debate them. So let's get right into it. So first of all, one of the main things that people kept saying in response to my commentary, instead of actually addressing the substance of my video, people kept asking me, where are you from? And they do that because they have bought into this narrow-minded, bigoted perspective of Tariq Nasheed. This anti-black immigrant sentiment, this pervasive on social media because of people like Tariq Nasheed and the ADOS movement. Where at one time, Tariq Nasheed, for instance, used to talk about melanated people. He used to have more of a Pan-African perspective, similar to Dr. Umar Johnson's perspective, where Dr. Umar Johnson sees black people around the world as one people. And that's something that I do actually respect about him. I respect his Pan-Africanist perspective. That's one thing that I respect about the brother Umar Johnson. But at one point, he used to be all about melanated people. Now he's created this FBA movement, which is really just a hijacking of ADOS. He took their rhetoric and made it even more hateful and more toxic. And he rebranded ADOS into FBA because he saw that movement was gaining traction and attention, and he saw that it had momentum behind it. So he shifted that momentum towards him for his own sake, for his own profiteering. And now he's got copyrights on products, on the name and all that kind of stuff, so that he can make money off of it, so he can monetize it. But some foolish people actually think this is about the people and this is about reparations, when it's really just about him stacking his money and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, the reason why I brought that up is because he shifted to this anti-black immigrant sentiment. And because of that, he has black people fighting each other. Black people from the diaspora fighting continental Africans. Black people from the Caribbean fighting against African Americans, etc. Dividing and conquering the black community worldwide. Basically perpetuating the divide and conquer objective of our enemy, perpetuating divide and conquer strategies implemented by the colonizers and the white supremacists. He's allowed himself to be an agent of white supremacists, and that's why his stooges, his bots, his flunkies, these FBA cult members. That's why they come to my comment section, and instead of addressing the substance of what I have to say, they want to ask me where I'm from. Well, to settle this, I'm a quote unquote foundational Black American. I am from America. So you can't use that to try to discredit me. And the point of the matter is this. Where I'm from really is not even relevant to the points being raised. That's a prime example of an ad hominem attack. And instead of attacking the core points being raised, you try to attack the person. So that's the first thing I had to respond to. And then another thing is this, somebody asked like, well, how is Donald Trump hurting Black Americans, so-called foundational Black Americans? That was one of the questions that people asked in the comment section. And, these are these Tariq Nasheed people, asking this ridiculous question. And I'm just like, how in the world do you find yourself asking a silly question like that, given all these executive orders Donald Trump has passed? And I'm going to start with one that should be relevant to these FBA followers. You are very familiar with Tariq Nasheed's Hidden Color series, where he's, giving you this pseudo Black history or whatever. But he's promoting Black history. He's trying to teach Black history. Well, Donald Trump has passed an executive order that will limit the ability of teachers to pass, to teach about Black history, to teach about the true history of racism in this country, to teach about the history of slavery and Jim Crow in this country. Donald Trump has passed an executive order to prevent that from happening, to actually defund schools that try to teach about actual Black history. And in his mind, white students are the victims of such teachings. These teachings make white people feel guilty, and because of that, he wants to eliminate that kind of teaching from schools. He doesn't want people to learn about the history that our people have endured. So that's something that should resonate with you as a Tariq Nasheed follower, since he has been about teaching Black history. He purports to be about it. He has his Hidden Color series. He had his documentary on Haiti. That's Black history. He doesn't want, Donald Trump wants to prevent that from being taught in our schools, our actual history from being taught. So that's one policy that impacts Black people. Then he has these anti-DEI measures that he is passing, these executive orders. And I know some people downplayed the significance of DEI. They talk about how everybody benefits except for Black people. And some people said only 4% of Black people benefited from that. The fact of the matter is, even if that were true, even if it was only 4%, that's 4% that otherwise wouldn't have benefited from a program. That's 4%, that's a percentage of people that will not have certain opportunities because of the ending of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are plenty of people. And then when you look at affirmative action, Donald Trump appointed Supreme Court justices that gutted affirmative action. Affirmative action made it possible for many of us, including myself, to get higher education, to go to college, to go to law school. And now those doors of opportunity are slammed in the faces of Black people because of people like Donald Trump. Now we will have less people going to college. We will have less people in corporate America, less people in higher positions, and less people with opportunities for promotion. And the other thing is this: Donald Trump has rendered the EEOC powerless by firing key personnel. So now the EEOC that was charged with trying to end discrimination will no longer be able to fulfill its functions at this particular time. So that directly impacts Black people who are discriminated against on the job. It affects Black people that are trying to get promotions on the job but are being denied the opportunity to get a promotion because of the color of their skin. That directly affects them. And the thing is, going back to DEI is necessary because we live in a society where, white people are in a dominant position. And many white people in those positions, they have a good old boy network where they hire people that look like them, where they value people that look like them and they devalue people who don't. And because of that, you need diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to give Black people a chance at some kind of equity. You need programs like affirmative action, because affirmative action was taken against Black people to deprive us of opportunity. So those are a couple of examples of policies that Donald Trump has implemented that are detrimental to Black people. Also, Donald Trump is trying to end the Department of Education. He's trying to eliminate the Department of Education, a department that helps fund educational opportunities for Black college students, a department that helps address discrimination in public schools. He's trying to end that. That will impact Black people. That will negatively impact Black people. And, we could go into like police measures that Donald Trump plans to pass. He wants to give these police immunity to harass and brutalize Black people, to racially profile Black people. And we could go on and on. Another example there are two other examples that I want to mention real quick. Donald Trump has, basically put the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department on hold. So they can't investigate any new cases. They cannot bring any new charges against anyone, any new civil rights cases. So they're on hold. So while our rights are being violated, the Justice Department, whose job is to fight discrimination and to protect civil rights, they can't do anything right now because of Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump is actually having the Justice Department reconsider some of those consent decrees that they have entered with police departments around the country. These are orders where police departments are required to implement certain measures to end discriminatory policing practices in their departments. But Donald Trump wants to reevaluate those consent decrees, and it's possible that many of these racist police departments will no longer be required to end their discriminatory policing practices. Departments like here in Baltimore is under a consent decree. In Ferguson and Minneapolis and other places where we've had these uprisings take place, they have the consent decrees against those police departments because of their discriminatory policing practices. And now it is possible under Trump that these consent decrees will be lifted. That is one of the things that he talked about. And when he took office the first time, he tried to prevent the Justice Department from entering any more consent decrees during his time. So that is something that directly impacts Black people. It impacts us, when these police brutalize us and kill us, when they racially profile Black people. Now, there will be no potential remedy of a consent decree because of Donald Trump. And with all these policies, these anti-Black policies of the Trump administration, you got some of these dumb, deaf, and blind Tariq Nasheed supporters and conservatives talking about people wanting to be on some kind of Democratic plantation. When I just laid out all these policies that Donald Trump is implementing against Black people, if you support Donald Trump, you're the one that's actually on the plantation. If you support Donald Trump, you are the Stephen from Django. If you support Donald Trump, you are the Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. If you support Donald Trump, you're the Step It, Fetch It, and the Amos and Andy and other buffoonish, clownish, sellout Black people. That's what you are if you support this man after I laid out all these anti black policy that this man has helped to implement. This is a man that tried to suppress black voters. During the last election cycle where he lost, he tried to suppress black voters in places like Michigan. And it should be a big red flag to you when you ask, like, what are the policies that he's implementing that are detrimental to black people? I mean, this man just freed like 1,500 racist white supremacists that stormed the Capitol. The Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers. These are racist white supremacist groups that this man just gave a pass to, get home free from jail pass to. That's what he's done. But yet, and still, some people had a nerve to ask, like, what kind of policies Donald Trump is implementing that are detrimental to black people. Another thing that he has done is his appointments to the Supreme Court. And I mentioned some of these things before, but his appointments to the Supreme Court ended affirmative action, are trying to roll back, voting rights and any other civil right when it comes to black people. So that's another area where his policies are detrimental to black people. And the last thing I'll address is this. A lot of people kept saying, basically saying, Obama did nothing for black people and all this and that in my comment section. Obama has done plenty for black people, when he was in office. And I've done a whole video about that, but I'll summarize some of the things that Obama did when he was in the White House. And I'm just laying this out because there's this false narrative out here where people want to suggest that Obama did nothing. And they actually had the nerve to suggest that Donald Trump is more beneficial to the black community, or to suggest that somehow Democrats and Republicans are one and the same. That is by far one of the most ridiculous things that have been put out here. Well, here's a few things that Obama has done for black people. Number one, Obama is, the one whose Justice Department implemented all those consent decrees ending discriminatory policing practices in places like Baltimore and Ferguson and other places. That was Obama's Justice Department that did that. Obama's Justice Department, or Obama's administration rather, fought to protect affirmative action, a program that benefited black people and provided opportunities for black people. Another thing that Obama did was the Brothers Keepers program that he implemented to benefit black communities. Another thing he did was pass an executive order promoting quality education in black communities. Obama protected our voting rights through the Justice Department when he was in power. He fought to protect the Voting Rights Act. He fought to protect our right to elect candidates of our choice. That's what Obama did. Obama increased black employment on his watch. When unemployment was sky high when he took office, and during his term, unemployment went down substantially. Obama helped pass so-called Obamacare that made it possible for many black people who are disproportionately uninsured to get health insurance. He helped pass the Fair Sentencing Act, which reduced the sentencing disparity between between powder cocaine and crack cocaine. Substantially reduced it. And that's one of the key reasons why we have mass incarceration, because of that disparity. Well, Obama helped reduce it. And Obama implemented policies in the Justice Department to try to limit the problem of mass incarceration in the community, to limit convictions of nonviolent drug offenders. And he also issued many pardons for such nonviolent drug offenders. And I could go on and on, but those are a few things that President Obama did for black people. So the suggestion that somehow Democrats and Republicans are one and the same is absolutely absurd. And then the last point that I'll make, and hopefully this will actually be the last point, and that's this. But the point that I wanted to get to is this whole issue of reparations. A lot of people have said, well, what about these tangibles? Like, we need tangibles, or we're holding our vote. As if to suggest that somehow they're going to get reparations under Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't even want to give you diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it is absolutely ridiculous for you to think that somehow by holding your vote that you're going to help any kind of movement for reparations. It's Democrats who support reparations. It's the Democrats that presented that for consideration by Congress. It's Democratic politicians that did that. And I know Obama did not support reparations. And I know that there were statements that Kamala Harris made that were, suggesting that she didn't support reparations, but she later changed her position. But here you have a man that won't even give you DEI, and you actually expect this man to give you some reparations. This is a man that wants to white out the history of racism in this country, but yet and still you actually expect this man to give you reparations. Make it make sense.